Picture this moment. You've been sitting in your favorite chair, maybe reading, maybe watching television, maybe just resting for a few minutes after lunch. You decide it's time to get up. You push yourself to standing, and then, for just a second or two, something shifts. The room tilts slightly. Your vision goes a little dim at the edges. There's a brief rushing sensation in your head, a feeling of unsteadiness that makes you pause, reach for the arm of the chair, or grab the nearest wall just until it passes. And then it does pass. In a few seconds, everything settles. You're fine, you move on. You've probably told yourself the same thing you've told yourself every other time this has happened. I stood up too fast. I just need to slow down a little. It's nothing. It's just age. But here is what almost nobody has ever told you about that moment. That brief dizzy spell, the one that comes and goes so quickly you've learned to barely notice it anymore, is not simply the unavoidable result of getting older. It is a signal, a specific, well-documented, medically recognized signal that your body's blood pressure regulation system is sending you. And what it's connected to goes far beyond a momentary inconvenience. Welcome back to eVital Longevity. If you're new here, this channel is dedicated to giving you honest, research-informed conversations about what aging well actually looks like. The real version, grounded in science, that helps you stay strong, stay independent, and stay in charge of your own health for as long as possible. Today we are talking about something that affects a remarkably large number of people over 60, something experienced daily, dismissed daily, and almost never discussed with nearly enough depth or honesty. That dizzy feeling when you stand up, what it is, why it happens, what it's doing inside your body, what it might be telling you about your fall risk, and most importantly, what you can actually do about it starting today. By the end of this video, you are going to understand this sensation in a completely different way than you did when you clicked on it. You'll know exactly what is happening inside your blood vessels and your nervous system in the seconds after you rise. You'll know the specific warning signs that deserve more than a shrug. You'll have a simple self-check you can perform at home. And you'll have a set of practical, concrete habits that research suggests can meaningfully reduce both the frequency of these episodes and the risks connected to them. This is not a story about something being wrong with you. It is a story about a system in your body that most people never think about until it starts to speak up, and about how, once you understand it, you have far more influence over it than you've ever been told. Let's start with what is actually happening in the seconds after you stand. Every time you move from sitting or lying down to standing, your body faces an immediate mechanical challenge. Gravity pulls a significant volume of blood downward, toward your legs and your lower body, in a matter of seconds. Your heart is suddenly pumping against a different set of conditions than it was a moment ago. And your brain, which has no blood storage of its own and depends entirely on a constant, pressurized supply, is suddenly at risk of receiving slightly less than it needs. In a well-calibrated system, this challenge is met almost instantly. Specialized pressure sensors in your blood vessels, called baroreceptors, detect the drop in pressure the moment you stand. They send an immediate signal to the brain. The brain responds by telling the heart to beat faster, instructing the blood vessels to tighten slightly, and redirecting blood flow upward to maintain pressure to the brain. The entire process takes a matter of seconds and happens so efficiently that most people never feel it at all. But in many adults over 60, this system begins to work a little more slowly. The baroreceptors become slightly less sensitive with age. The blood vessels respond a little less quickly to the brain's instructions. The heart takes a fraction of a second longer to adjust its rate. And in that small window of delay, those 2, 3, 4 seconds between standing and full pressure recovery, the brain receives temporarily less blood than it needs. The result is exactly what so many people over 60 experience and have learned to dismiss as nothing. The lightheadedness, the brief visual dimming, the momentary unsteadiness, the instinct to hold on to something until it passes. This condition has a name. It is called orthostatic hypotension, orthostatic meaning related to standing upright, hypertension meaning low blood pressure. And it is not, as so many people assume, simply a quirk of aging to be accepted and worked around. It is a recognized cardiovascular and neurological pattern with documented connections to fall risk, cognitive function, and long-term cardiovascular health. And it is one that responds meaningfully to specific, targeted interventions. Now, before the concern level rises too far, we want to give you the same reassurance we always offer at eVital Longevity, because you deserve honesty more than you deserve alarm. Experiencing occasional lightheadedness when standing does not mean your heart is failing. It does not mean you are about to have a stroke, and it does not mean your health is in immediate danger. Many people experience mild, infrequent episodes that are related to temporary and easily correctable factors, dehydration being one of the most common, certain medications being another, and simply getting up too quickly from a very relaxed position being a third. What deserves attention is not the occasional mild episode. What deserves attention is a pattern. Episodes that happen frequently, several times a day, or most times you stand. Episodes that last longer than a few seconds. Episodes that are becoming more intense over time rather than less. Episodes that have caused you to grab something, stumble, or lose your footing even briefly. And episodes accompanied by other symptoms like chest discomfort, shortness of breath, or confusion. If that description matches your experience, this video is not a substitute for a conversation with your doctor. It is the beginning of one. Because orthostatic hypotension, when persistent and significant, can be assessed, can be explained, and in many cases can be substantially improved. But that process starts with a clinical evaluation, not a YouTube video. For everyone else, for the many people watching who experience this occasionally and have simply accepted it as normal, what comes next is for you. Before we talk about what you can do, let's be clear about what you're actually dealing with. Because one of the most important things about orthostatic hypotension is how easy it is to misunderstand, and how often that misunderstanding leads people toward the wrong conclusions. The most common assumption is that this is simply a blood pressure problem, that if your regular blood pressure readings are fine, this doesn't apply to you. But that assumption misses something important. Orthostatic hypotension is not about your resting blood pressure. It is about how quickly and how efficiently your blood pressure recovers when you change position. A person with perfectly normal resting blood pressure can experience significant orthostatic drops. And conversely, someone with elevated resting blood pressure can be at even higher risk, because their system may be working harder just to maintain baseline and have less reserve capacity for the adjustment. The second common assumption is that this is purely a circulation problem, something happening only in the blood vessels. But the research increasingly shows that the nervous system is central to this process. The baroreceptors that detect the pressure drop, the neural pathways that carry the signal to the brain, and the autonomic nervous system that coordinates the cardiovascular response. All of these are part of the same interconnected system we have been discussing across the last several eVital Longevity videos. The same system that shows up in grip strength. The same system reflected in walking speed. The same system disrupted by poor sleep. The same neural and vascular machinery that underlies so much of what healthy aging looks and feels like. Which brings us to why this matters beyond the dizziness itself. The most immediate concern connected to orthostatic hypotension in older adults is falls, and not just falls that happen in the obvious, dramatic moment of nearly passing out. The more common and more insidious risk is the subtle unsteadiness that happens in those 2 to 4 seconds of delayed pressure recovery. The moment when the room tilts just enough, when the footing becomes just uncertain enough, that a trip over a rug or a misjudged step becomes a fall rather than a stumble caught in time. Research has consistently found that older adults with orthostatic hypotension have a significantly higher risk of falls than those without it. And because falls in adults over 60 carry consequences that can be life-altering, fractures, hospitalizations, loss of confidence, reduced mobility, and the beginning of a cycle of decreasing independence. This is not a minor footnote. It is one of the most practically important things to understand and address. Beyond falls, persistent orthostatic hypotension has been associated in research with increased cardiovascular risk over time, and in some studies, with a higher likelihood of cognitive changes in later life. These are associations, not certainties. We want to be clear about that distinction. But they are associations strong enough and consistent enough across multiple large studies that the research community takes them seriously. And so should we. The good news, and there is genuinely significant good news here, is that the pressure regulation system responds to several specific and accessible interventions. Not all of them require a prescription. Not all of them require a medical device. Several of them are habits and practices that can begin today, cost nothing, and have meaningful evidence behind them. Let's walk through them clearly. The first and most immediately actionable is hydration. The volume of fluid in your bloodstream directly affects how much pressure your heart can generate and maintain. Even mild dehydration, the kind that doesn't feel dramatic, that doesn't make you feel thirsty in any urgent way, reduces blood volume enough to make orthostatic drops more frequent and more pronounced. Research consistently shows that adequate hydration is one of the most effective short-term strategies for reducing orthostatic symptoms. The general guidance from specialists in this area is that older adults should aim for consistent fluid intake throughout the day rather than catching up all at once, and that caffeinated beverages and alcohol, both of which have dehydrating effects, should be balanced with additional water. The second is movement before rising. Giving your blood vessels and nervous system a brief preparatory signal before you stand dramatically reduces the delay in pressure recovery. This looks like pumping your ankles up and down 10 times before getting out of bed in the morning, a motion that activates the calf muscles, which act as a second pump pushing blood back up toward the heart. It looks like sitting on the edge of a chair or the side of the bed for 20 to 30 seconds before fully standing, giving your baroreceptors time to begin adjusting before the full gravitational challenge hits. And it looks like tightening the muscles in your legs briefly before you push to standing, which increases venous return and reduces the initial pressure drop. These are not complicated maneuvers. They are 30-second habits that, once learned, become automatic. And for many people with mild to moderate orthostatic symptoms, they produce a noticeable difference within days of consistent use. The third area is dietary timing. Large meals, particularly those high in refined carbohydrates, cause a significant redirection of blood flow toward the digestive system in the hour or two following eating. This post-meal blood redistribution can combine with the standing pressure drop to produce symptoms that are more pronounced than usual. Eating smaller, more frequent meals rather than large ones, and avoiding rising quickly in the 30 to 60 minutes immediately following a meal can meaningfully reduce the frequency of symptomatic episodes. The fourth is physical activity, specifically the kind that trains the cardiovascular system's ability to respond to positional changes. Regular walking, as we discussed in a previous video, remains one of the most evidence-supported habits for maintaining cardiovascular flexibility in older adults. Leg strengthening exercises, the same calf raises and chair stands we covered before, directly support the venous return system that helps push blood back toward the heart when you stand. And any activity that involves moving between positions, sitting, standing, gentle bending, helps maintain the baroreceptor sensitivity that tends to decrease with prolonged sedentary behavior. The fifth, and perhaps the least obvious, is sleep position. Research has found that sleeping with the head of the bed slightly elevated by approximately 6 to 9 inches can help reduce orthostatic hypotension by training the body's pressure regulation system to work against a mild gravitational gradient even during sleep. This is a technique used clinically in some cases of significant orthostatic hypotension, And while the home version is milder, some people find it produces a meaningful reduction in morning symptoms, which is often when episodes are most pronounced. Now let's talk about how to weave these habits into the life you are already living. Because the gap between knowing something is useful and actually doing it consistently is where most good health information goes quiet. If you already have a morning routine, and most people over 60 do, attach the ankle pumping habit to the moment before your feet hit the floor. You are already lying there for a moment when you wake up. Use 20 seconds of that time. Pump your ankles, tighten your legs, sit on the edge of the bed, then stand. That is the entire intervention built into something you already do. If you drink coffee or tea in the morning, let that be your reminder to start your fluid intake early rather than waiting until you feel thirsty. One full glass of water before the coffee. That single habit, maintained consistently, addresses one of the most common and correctable contributors to orthostatic symptoms. And if you are already doing the calf raises and chair stands from our walking speed video, know that those same exercises are directly supporting your blood pressure regulation system every single time you do them. You are not starting from scratch. You are already building the foundation. We want to say something to you now that we mean with complete sincerity, because this is the part of the conversation we care about most. The dizzy feeling when you stand up, the one you have been dismissing for months, maybe years, is not a small thing asking to be ignored, but it is also not a frightening thing asking to be feared. It is your body's communication system doing exactly what it is supposed to do, signaling that something in the pressure regulation process needs a little more support than it's currently getting. That signal is not a verdict. It is an invitation. An invitation to understand something you didn't fully understand before, and to respond to it with the specific, targeted attention it deserves. Your blood vessels are not finished adapting. Your baroreceptors are not permanently fixed in their current sensitivity. Your autonomic nervous system, the one coordinating this entire process, remains responsive to the right inputs at 60, 70, and 80 years old. Every glass of water, every set of ankle pumps, every calf raise, every decision to sit for a moment before standing is a message sent back to that system. A message that says, I am paying attention. I am giving you what you need. And your body, as it always has, will do its best to meet you there. Picture waking up tomorrow morning. You've slept with the head of your bed slightly elevated. You lie still for a moment after your eyes open, and you pump your ankles, 10 slow, deliberate pumps. You sit up, swing your legs to the edge of the bed, and pause for 20 seconds. Then you stand. And it's different. Not dramatically, not in a way that feels like a miracle, but the room doesn't tilt. The edges of your vision stay clear. You are simply standing steadily, the way standing is supposed to feel. You walk to the kitchen. You drink a glass of water before the coffee. Later in the morning, you do your calf raises while the kettle heats. And sometime in the afternoon, when you get up from the sofa after watching television, you notice that you didn't reach for anything. You just stood up and stayed steady. These are small moments, but they are the moments that, added together, make up the felt experience of independence, of confidence in your own body, of moving through your home and your day without that quiet background watchfulness that comes from not quite trusting the ground beneath your feet. That is what we are building toward, one small habit at a time, and you are closer to it than you think. You came into this video with a sensation you had probably stopped questioning, a brief, familiar dizziness that had simply become part of how standing up feels after 60. We hope you are leaving with something far more useful, with a name for what has been happening, with an understanding of what it is connected to and why it matters, with a self-check you can do at home and specific habits you can begin today, and with the honest, research-informed confidence that this is not something you are simply stuck with. Your one action today is the ankle pump. Tomorrow morning, before your feet touch the floor, pump your ankles 10 times. That is all. Start there. And then in the comments below, tell us, has this dizzy feeling been part of your experience? How often does it happen? Have you ever mentioned it to a doctor? This community learns from each other, and your honesty helps every single person reading these comments feel less alone in what they are navigating. If this video gave you something valuable, please take a moment to like it. It helps eVital Longevity reach more people who need this conversation. And if you are not yet subscribed, we would love to have you as part of this community, because what is coming next connects everything we have covered across these last 4 videos into something larger. A picture of how the aging body signals its needs through the smallest, most ordinary moments of daily life, and how responding to those signals, one small habit at a time, is what staying well after 60 actually looks like. Next time, we are going to talk about something that happens in your body every single time you take a breath, something most people never think about until it starts to change, and something that has a direct connection to your energy, your brain clarity, and how quickly your body recovers from any physical effort. It is not what most people expect when they think about breathing, and once you understand it, we think it will change the way you think about something you do 20,000 times a day. That conversation is coming soon. Until then, take your time when you rise, drink your water, move your ankles, and remember, your body has been sending you signals all along. You are simply learning at last how to hear them. Take good care of yourself.